Hi, everyone. This is Celeste Hudson,
And I am Kebony Smith.
and together we are Two Vets, One Mic. And today we have Victor Carmona with us. So I'll have Kebony go ahead and head it off.
So Victor worked with us at Dyess Air Force Base. We worked together for quite some time. We were all dental at that time, and he has since retired, and he's working at a JROTC. Uh, he's working as a JROTC instructor in North Carolina. So we wanted to talk to him and talk about his experience and how he transitioned from the military and how it's been. And we go way back. So, Victor, I guess the first question is, what made you decide to retire? I know you were really, if you were a commandant, that's the last thing I knew. You were a commandant, and commandants are really high on the chain for promoting where I came from. So, what made you retire and all that good jazz?
Mhm. Well, so the question is basically why I wanted to retire. My goal was always to retire at 20. I felt like the Air Force was, one chapter of my life, and I wanted to do something else. And I wanted to do it at I always liked the idea of retiring age of 40 and starting something new, something completely different, a new chapter in my life. So that was the goal, to hit 20-ish and then retire. When I was at the end of my career, when I was the commandant, it would have taken me to about 23 years. So I wasn't going to leave my instructors midway through. So I stayed to at least 22 years.
And you weren't enticed with with promoting.
I was. I did try, definitely. What was it? I was doing well
Mm-hmm.
around right before COVID. And
Oh
the funny
yeah.
thing is, um, it was for me. It could have been numerous reasons. Obviously, I just wasn't picked up. I didn't get stratted for E8. But there was one thing that was very unpopular. I changed the chief and first sergeant versus ALS students game to a different course. So I canceled it at first for COVID and after COVID, and that just wasn't a very popular decision. But I did change it to something else. It wasn't what I thought. The volleyball game. It wasn't what I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
it should be.
Very familiar.
I thought it was more. It was too competitive, in my opinion, to the ugly side, and I thought should have been more for building relationships and utilizing each other
Mm-hmm.
to be to break barriers and get accustomed to talking to like a first sergeant or a chief to get comfortable with that. And so I made kind of like a Survivor Series. We call it the Clash of the no, not Clash of the, that's what I do now in ALS. We call it the Chevron Marathon. And so
Oh.
basically, you utilize a chief and a shirt and several students, ALS students, against each other. Other shirts and chiefs against other ALS students. It was like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 teams. And we had obstacles that a chief would be good at, obstacles that a shirt would be good at, and obstacles that ALS students would be good at. So you had to utilize each other. So that's what I did at the end. But at that point, then I started gearing towards retirement. So
Did the
the
students even
EA
like
was
the volleyball game?
they did the competitive ones did. The other ones didn't. So what I found was, because the students always had to rotate with the chiefs and the shirts, but the shirts and chiefs always brought the most athletic, the most, the ones that
Right.
always wanted to win. But we always saw the same shirts and chiefs, never the other shirts and chiefs. They would be there. Some of the non-athletic ones would be there cheering, but for the most part, it was always the same shirts and chiefs. And the students were, because we had to rotate them, not everybody wanted to do that. So I would say, I don't know, like maybe 50% liked it, and the other half
Yeah,
didn't. So
yeah. I was a part of a couple of those. when I was, so that's interesting. Yeah. It gets all political. So you're like, forget
Yeah, it
it.
was
I'm
funny. I was like,
retiring.
a volleyball
No, go
incident
ahead.
impacted my Air Force career.
And it's funny you say that, but stuff like that happens, right? Because who's in there doing the boards and looking at, giving you your strats?
Yeah.
Those
The
people,
funny thing
right?
was the command chief was one of the most competitive one. I had to have a conversation with him, like,
Wow.
anyways, it was an awkward conversation, but yeah, it wasn't my favorite. So I removed it and it wasn't popular. But what I implemented, I thought was really good, but I don't think it'll take, because it's something that it was me and my team that did it. So we would need to, it was just something that was creative, and we didn't like necessarily write it down or told anybody else as far as, for like best practices so they can continue it. But it's kind of like Survivor. I like to show Survivor. So, yeah.
So you decided to retire, and what made you get into being an ROTC instructor?
So at the time, so my degree's in mathematics, and so I was going to be a math teacher, and that's what I was striving to try to get. And when that time, I don't know, so people always told me you want to start looking into retirement like about 2 years out. Start, looking at jobs, looking at where you're going to live and things like that. And there's a lot of unknown when you're retiring. And so I started looking at, well, how do I become a teacher? All I have is a degree in mathematics, not necessarily a degree in teaching. And so for the state of Delaware, because we're retired out of, there was a lot of hurdles in the sense of I needed to, I couldn't just take a test and become a teacher. I needed to like shadow for like a year, get paid very minimal, and then on the second year still won't get paid as a teacher, but then I'll be running a classroom. And then after my second year, I also have to be taking classes. So it was basically like a master's course. And then I could be a teacher full time after the second year. But 2 years of not making a lot of money and not knowing what retirement was going to be like as far as finances and bills that I will incur and things like that. So ROTC, I talked to one of my chiefs, and he was like, "You ever thought about doing ROTC?" And I was like, "I did a while back ago, and I totally forgot about it." And so I started looking into that again, and it was very, it was very easy. I just looked up, I went to the website. I already had all the training. All you need was a degree and being in the military. And so I submitted my name. I filled out all the paperwork and requirements that was needed, did the interviews, and then I got picked up. And so that was a lot more sure, more financially the right decision for me and my family versus the unknown with teaching for the 2 years and things like that. So I wish it was more of I always wanted to teach ROTC cadets. And on top of that, I thought it would be a nice transition because it is a bit scary going into the civilian. This is all I've known, military. I joined when I was 19 years old. So I thought it was a good transition. As I was retiring, I was buying uniforms. I was like, what retiree buys uniforms? I guess ROTC instructor buys uniforms.
That is different.
So yeah, even though I retired, I was a ROTC instructor on terminal leave. So I almost feel like I didn't really retire. If that makes sense, because I still wear the uniform every day.
Did you take a break when you retired?
No, I literally I left from I left Dover, and my car was packed when I went to my final out to get all the to final out from the base, and we drove all the way to North Carolina, and I started like that following week. I think it was Friday that we went Saturday, Sunday, and I started like on Monday. No, that's a lie. I started Wednesday.
Man.
So yeah, on
Dang.
terminal leave. Mm-hmm. So I've been working for the longest. I didn't even get no vacation. Well, that's a lie. I did go on 1 week. We went on a cruise.
I'm sorry to hear that. Hey, if you ever want to teach, bring that math degree over to Florida. The governor, yeah, it had to be the governor, put in this rule for like the next 5 years that anyone retiring or that was in the military can be a teacher because we're so short on teachers.
To be honest, though, now that I am an ROTC instructor and I see the students that I have and the students I would have been teaching as a math teacher, I am so glad I am an ROTC instructor versus a math teacher.
That's good.
I think that's the thing that scared me from ROTC. I did some volunteer work when I was at Maxwell, and I went and I was in a classroom. I was very interested in it then because it seems like it's so impactful. But these kids these days, I know how my kids are, right? And it's like,
right.
are the kids as bad as they seem?
Maybe it's the school that I'm in. It's not like, I'm not an inner city school. We're, in the suburbs. But we still have students that, are not. So the cool thing about ROTC is that in the first 10 days, or really any time throughout ROTC, it's in the contract with the school, or the Air Force ROTC has a contract with the school that an ROTC instructor can remove any student that is not meeting the cadet creed, the cadet expectations. So, but that's not fair to the school if you just remove students left and right. So within the first 10 days, the school allows me to remove any student that is not going to quite meet the expectations, such as, cut their hair or wants to behave a certain way. So I do the same thing as I did as a commandant. I read the rules from the beginning. They're kind of like their contract, and any student that doesn't want to abide by that, I have them switch classes. So, that's why I said, like, a math teacher, I couldn't do that. Whoever I get is who I get. Whereas ROTC, I can kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Filter my class, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Dang. Well, I didn't think about that. That you have some autonomy in ROTC versus the regular students. And are kids picking ROTC like arbitrarily? Are they saying, "Hey, I want to be a part of this," or is it kind of word of mouth? How do you get kids in ROTC? I wanted to be in ROTC because I thought the instructors were cool and they went on all these cool trips. So what's the draw now?
Well, that's the other thing so this job. Well, the draw is school trips and trying to make it fun. It's a leadership course, so everybody always sees ROTC as a military course, and they wear the uniform, they got to cut your hair, and they're strict. So the other job that was perfect for me in the sense for this job, ROTC instructor, was I was a recruiter. So my job was as a recruiter to put people in the Air Force and market the Air Force. So ROTC, I have to do the exact same thing. I have to market and recruit for ROTC because I have to have 100 cadets. And so I inherited it was 68 cadets last year. This year we moved up to 82, and I think next year I'm projected to be 120, so which will be over the 100. So I have to basically sell myself, sell the program, and have the cadets, recruit as well. So I think, well, not I think, my main focus has been trying to show all the fun things that we can do in ROTC. So one of the things that I started was a haunted house. Because I did that.
Oh, you went back to the dental days, huh?
Oh, yeah. Was he there when we were doing it?
And in dental. So
that's right, he was.
So we made a haunted house in ROTC. And so we had all the other students, you know, I had the teachers bring them through, and the students loved it. And that showed my reasoning was, one, I didn't know what to do with these students in the beginning. Two, I had to recruit other people, and I think that'll be fun, and get other students to come to ROTC. They don't even know where ROTC is. So I think that helped, and just go on trips, to try to get more students to join and stuff like that. So
no, that sounds cool.
Recruiting. Yeah.
I forgot,
but
you
it's
were
fun.
recruiting.
Yeah, so those are two jobs that actually really did help. And I was in charge of honor guard for a little bit, and so that helped with the flags, the color guard, and things like that. So those three jobs, basically in the Air Force, set me up for ROTC. Although dental does not, because they do not find my stories of dental entertaining at all. I do tell them to floss though.
Oh my God.
Celeste, did you have anything? You're still frozen on my end, but
I know. Well, can you guys? I don't even know if you guys can see my face. I see a black screen of me.
Yes.
But that's okay. So I did want to ask you. Obviously, all those jobs prepared you for the job you have now. I was interested, you know, one day of being in ROTC, an instructor as well. I was in ROTC when I was in school, but I was always confused about how the pay is, and then the bonuses, and do they try to match, you know, what you were getting before you get out? Like, how is that? Can you explain that for those that are interested?
Oh, that's a great question, because it was confusing for me as well.
Easy.
And so yeah, basically they match the rank that you retired in. So they match my master sergeant pay. So it benefits the school in the sense of the Air Force will pay the school 50% of what a master sergeant gets. So the school really only pays, you know, so they pay what? Half of master sergeant's pay. Like $1,000, I don't know. It's just under.
Is this just base pay?
Save $1,500. That's what the school will pay a month, and so the Air Force will pay the other $1,500. And so that benefits the school. If you think about it, they're only paying $1,500 a month for a teacher.
Very cheap for them.
But that's the old pay. That's called MIP, the minimum instructor pay. Starting July 1st, they're changing it, because now they were having a hard time getting instructors. And I just don't think they advertise it well. They mention it every once in a while, but then that's it. They don't really go to TAPS, or they don't go anywhere else really that I remember.
No, they don't at all.
They sell it. And I know they can't always get into TAPS. I know there's rules about that and stuff like that. But neither here nor there. They're changing it July 1st, and because they can hire anybody who has served for, I think, what's the new rule? So don't quote me on it, but they're changing the rules. You don't have to have retired from the military to now be an ROTC instructor.
Oh, wow.
And
that's a big change.
A bachelor's either. So now there's
big.
a pay scale. There's a pay scale. And so it jumped up big time in pay. Like a lot. If you have a bachelor's, and if you're in charge, so there's like two positions. There's an officer and enlisted, or you could be two enlisted as well. Like that's my office. We're two enlisted, and so there's the SASE position, which is typically the officer position, and then the ASI, which is typically the enlisted position. The SASE gets paid extra if they're enlisted. So I want to say it jumped up big time to like 6,000. We'll say 6,002 a month to compared to like 3. So it literally almost over doubled.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
So that's July. So July, nice pay raise for me.
Wait, huh? That's why they're making you work throughout the whole year instead of getting the summers off now. Huh?
Basically, correct. Yeah, but I don't know how the county even pays. They have to pay more too. So now the school pays more for a teacher, but I still think it's still they still bank. They still don't pay as much as they would for a teacher,
Okay.
but the Air Force pays. So, like I said, so it's a good paying job, and also every state is different. So
Yeah.
I interview in different states, and the way it works is you get to pick at least 4 schools that you want to interview with, and then you go through the interviews. If it goes well, you pick one. If it doesn't go well, or you don't like any of those, you can pick another 4, and so on and so forth. It's kind of like but that's just the way it works. You keep going until you find a job. And so the one in Virginia, I was going to pick, and they do a $10,000 signing bonus.
Okay.
The one I picked here, and I don't see this a lot in a lot of states. Some states offer it, but not always. They did on top of my MIP, or on top of my salary, it was a 10%. So no, sorry, 12% of my annual salary I would get as well. So I get like an additional paycheck once a
bonus.
year.
Okay.
Yep. So, so yeah. Oh, and the way MIP works is not only just master sergeant pay, is also what you get as a master sergeant and housing as well.
That's what I was going to ask. Was there
was this base pay or a housing allowance too?
Base pay, housing allowance, added all in there. 50% the county pays, 50% the school pays, should I say, and 50% the Air Force pays.
So that's not bad. So I was reading, I think a couple of years ago when I was thinking about getting out before I got out, actually it was probably 4 years ago, that they were really trying to really expand the ROTC program and up it and put it into more schools. But whenever I would go online and look for positions, it didn't seem like there were many, and they weren't in really glamorous areas, as I guess as you would say. Is that true that they're trying to expand it? Put it in more schools?
I don't, that I'm not aware of too much, because all I see is all the job openings. There's a lot of job openings.
Okay.
And there's a lot of schools that ever since COVID are having a hard time hitting that 100 cadet viability number. So they've been closing a lot of schools down because they haven't been hitting that 100 number. Now, when I say a lot, I've only seen or heard of 2 schools. So that's exaggeration, but that's through the grapevine. All the instructors talk about, they're closing all the schools down. Yeah, there's only been 2 schools they closed, but I guess it's more like the fear they're closing the schools down. But I see there's 8 pages of openings. Last I looked was 5 months ago.
Then maybe that is true, because when I used to look, it was 2 or 3, never 8. So
there was,
and I think they're doing it to help probably with to increase recruitment in the military too, since that's been down a lot lately. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I've heard. Well, this is it's not supposed to be a recruiting job. It's supposed to be a leadership development, and that's how I treat it. I don't recruit at all. I help a student, whoever wants to join the Air Force or to join any branch. But I don't know if the Air Force sees any return investment on ROTC. I hope they do, but I don't know.
Are they still giving people? I went in and got 2 years. As soon as I finished basic, I went to A1C. They still do that? Okay.
Yep. So once they finish 3 years, they get a certificate of completion, and they can take it to their recruiter and come in as A1C.
All right.
At least for the Air Force.
All right.
Do you was last year your first year, or you've been doing this 2 years now?
Well, this at the end of May, I will have completed my second year. So, I'm in the middle. I'm at the end of my second year doing this.
And how many students have gone into the military from ROTC? Or has there been a lot, or?
2 that I know of, both went Marines.
Ooh.
And one right now, currently, she's a senior. She's going to Air Force. So, so I got one. Not that
You
I'm
pushed them to the Marines.
Do the recruiters come to your
no,
class?
they do. A lot of the other branches, they don't come to my class a lot. We we host field day. We host a couple of other events that we invite them to, and that's when they come. Recruiters, I know the Air Force does come from time to time, but they don't come and speak to the class. So.
Mm. Okay.
I know that's not my market. When I was a recruiter, that was not my market.
It wasn't?
That's what they say is the market, but my market was college dropouts. So first year college dropout. That was where
Interesting.
that was my bread and butter.
How do you even know who dropped out?
I'm like,
Say what?
How do you even know who dropped out? Like, how do you even how do you even know?
They would, whenever I went to like a college campus, I walk around the community colleges or they would just call me. That was, Air Force recruiting was it's different from the other branches. It was more, the phone was, I know it's the ugly truth, but the phone was the bread and butter. The phone would ring, and that's how we would qualify the applicants and get appointments and stuff like that. So, or go to the colleges, or actually we'll meet some of the students in high school. So I guess that's not entirely true. The students that I would see, they would go to college, they would meet me at high school, and then they will remember, and they'll see me later on when they drop out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting
That's
because
actually
you meet a lot of people that previous airmen that, oh yeah, I went to college a little bit before I joined. You get a lot of that. So you were one of those recruiters
Yes.
that got one of them.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
it becomes expensive, and well, we all know life happens,
And sometimes you're not ready. You don't know what you want to be or do. So join the military
Right,
for a
yeah.
little bit.
And then that's when I would get them.
Yep.
Did you encounter any difficulties in your transition? You know, whether it be not taking a break or not being prepared enough. I know you touched on that. It
Yeah.
seems like your career kind of did prepare you, but can you speak to anything that was difficult? If it was anything difficult.
So no. I'm glad you asked it, because yes, even though it seems like I transitioned well, it was really hard. It was a lot of the unknown. So like when you're retiring, the unknown is money as well. Like, what am I going to make?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you could calculate your retirement pay, but I'm always like, did I do it right? Finance will tell me, and I'm like, okay, but they always will leave it kind of vague too, because I know there's a lot of things to consider that's not quite there until you retire. And then of course the VA, am I going to get a rating? What kind of rating am I going to get? There's just a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainties. So that was the scary part. And then at the time when we were retiring, Dover was the housing. They were kicking people out of base housing who were retiring, or making rooms. It was all, again, post-COVID. What was it? The cost of living was really high. The rents was going up, and the airmen couldn't afford being off base, so they were having to come on base and stay on base. So the retirees had to get off. So there was a lot of scary parts. Where we're going to go, what we're going to do. And so we came down. Once I got hired, we came down to North Carolina. That was different. We were away from the military, and I purposely picked that because that was me. I was like, I want something different, even though I'm going to be ROTC. So it's kind of it's still Air Force. It's still the comfort of what I'm used to, but it's still away from the military. I just want something different.
Right.
But man, it was completely different out here. Yes, I was prepared in the sense of like, rent and bills and all that, adult responsibility stuff. But it was just different. Like, okay, TRICARE out here in the middle of nowhere where there's no base. That was hard.
Yeah.
They say they accept TRICARE, but they don't. It was TRICARE Select. They would say, yeah, we take TRICARE Prime because that's the popular name, but it wasn't really TRICARE Prime. So I had to switch to TRICARE Select. And then my daughter had the, her medical, celiac. She was battling her pancreas issue. So we had to get like a specialist. We had to find a specialist. But we had to get in with Levine, the medical, the Children's Hospital in Charlotte. So that was difficult and frustrating and stressful. Then I think the comfort of being around military people, even if you're not friends with them, you still feel like you're a part of them. Like being on base, your neighbors, even though if you weren't necessarily friends, they were still an airman. They were still, or dependent. They were still part of the Air Force, part of your family. And out here was nothing. And my wife and I felt very alone. We regret it at times. Like, did we retire too soon? Can we go back? We did not like it. And we did not like everything was a lot slower. They did their processes were different. Like, anything from internet, we were having issues with medical, having issues with car, having issues, they weren't like big emergencies or big fires, but they were all small little fires here and there that was getting frustrating. And so that was, it all stemmed from not being, you don't realize what all the things the military does until you don't have it. And maybe a lot of it was we were just comfortable and we felt safe. And out here we felt alone. So one of the funny moments, so I was on terminal leave. I was in ROTC and I didn't retire. So school started August, and I didn't retire officially until November 1st. And we went to go get our retiree cards, and we drove to Shaw Air Force Base. And then, so all that time.
Oh, wow. You had to go all the way to Sumter?
Say what? Yeah, we had to go to
You had to go all the way to
Shaw
Sumter?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
The
Sorry
other one was
about that.
Johnson. Yeah. So we went there and we went on base and we were like, feels like home. It was, even Crystal, my wife, she missed the military. She had a hard time, and still from time to time misses the military life as well. So when she wasn't in, but she worked with us. She was
right.
She might as well have been. It was her home.
Right.
So yeah, it was hard for us. I'm trying to think of an instance other than medical. I know medical was a big one. Just everything, price went up. Everything, we thought we were good financially, and we were, and we still are, but it was just, everything was just going up in price, and we didn't realize how much it was. Even though I thought I was planning well and forecasting it, not until you do it, you're like, oh, wow, that was pricey.
Right.
So, yeah.
You can talk about it all day, but until you see the money coming in after you retire, it's still some, uncertainty until you actually see it all hitting the account. It's like, okay, all right, I can breathe.
That's what that's the worst part to me, was not knowing how much you're going to make. And of course, everybody plans, hopes that they get something from the VA as well. And that's a big issue too, a big unknown. Like, what are you going to get? So you can't plan anything until you know what you're going to get. So, and I'm a planner. I need to know these things. And when I don't know it,
right,
it's frustrating.
Right. No, for sure. So how is it now? Are y'all better now? Like, do you have a community in Charlotte?
We're better. I think we're getting accustomed to things. Like I said, we're getting used to things. It's just time. Time passes, and you just get, I guess, used to your surroundings. Get used to where you're at. No, we don't necessarily have a community. Crystal had her neighbor friends at the community that we did live at when we were renting before we bought a home. The first year we rented. Now that we bought a house here in the middle of nowhere, that makes it a little difficult too, because we're in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. But we have our in-laws, so we do have family. Crystal does have some friends near Charlotte area that she sees from time to time. Mm-hmm. Me, I have work, so, and now I have my new partner in crime at the schoolhouse. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. But as far as a friend community, not really. So not like it was before.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a common theme in the people we talk to. Like even people that separate after like 4 years. We had one guest on, and you go back home, and it's almost like, even if you choose to go back home, we didn't want to go back home per se.
Right.
But everybody's living life, so it's trying to get plugged into groups that are already, they're already bonded, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but I don't know a lot of people that live by, like when they retired, I think everybody either sticks around to where they were or they move, but nobody's kind of like by, if you're not working on base, you're kind of like out there on your own a little bit. And it just,
right.
I mean, I don't miss the military though. I don't even like going on base.
Totally agree. I went there to get my ID, and then when my husband got in to get his ID and then switch our insurance, make sure everyone was under me. And I stay away from MacDill because it's so, one, the traffic's so bad, and then it's just so busy, and I'm good.
We went to Fort Liberty not that long ago. I had to go down there to turn in like computers. And so now I'm done with Air Force stuff. I had Air Force stuff at the schoolhouse. Now I'm done with it. But anyways, we went to Fort Liberty, formerly known as Fort Bragg, and we went to the commissary. That we missed. We were like,
now those commissary prices are so much better. Yeah. Now I can't agree with that.
Commissary from time.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't. Now I went to the BX. I just wanted some AirPods, tax free. And so I'm about to commissary. I was like, now this is worth going out of my way because these prices are insane out here.
So yeah.
I did have a question about any advice you would give to people transitioning to kind of make their transition more smooth or better, or
you said any advice?
Yeah.
Well, I would say the same advice that people have always told me. If you're thinking of retiring, start like looking into it at least 2 years out. They told me to go to TAPS 2 years out. I tried that, but I couldn't because I think I deployed when I was 2 years out. So that kind of cut into it. Even though I could have when I deployed, I waited till I got back. So I didn't go to TAPS about a year out. But it took a long time doing all the like just looking for a job. Because this wasn't my ROTC wasn't the only job that I was looking into. I was looking at 2 other jobs. One being a math teacher. One was I forgot what it was. Oh, it was working at First Command as well. So I looked into that as well. So those other things that I was trying. Oh, there was another job. That was a weird one. I didn't know what they did. So now I'm going to get into it. But I didn't know what they were doing. But I think I was going to be in charge of like interns. But I didn't know what they did. Or what they told. It was just weird. It was just a lot. There's just a lot of uncertainties everywhere. But anyways, my advice would be start at least out researching, looking into whatever it is that you're planning on doing. Where you planning on living? If you're going to go home or where? Like we moved over here near the Charlotte area just because that's where the job took us. This isn't our home or anything along those lines. So, yeah, that's my best advice. Just start 2 years out, because, the VA, that's going to, medical records, all that, that's going to take a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what don't wait till like, the end and think it's never going to come, because it will come eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I did it because I still had like, like 8-9 more months to go, but I chose to retire earlier because it benefited me to start at a certain time. I didn't want to start in the middle of the school year, so I had to start in the beginning of the year. So I had to, give myself that buffer. So again, I started early.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to think what else was beneficial. Yeah, just start early, just because there's so many things you're going to link into, like medical. Wherever you move, do they take TRICARE Select, TRICARE Prime, or TRICARE Select, or you're going to do your own different insurance, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm sounding like a broken record, but start 2 years out.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I wish I would have started earlier myself, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
You're thriving now, though, Kevin. So.
Yeah. No, I no regrets.
I mean, it taken 4 years, but you're thriving.
Right. No, I have no regrets.
I
But I agree. You should, as soon as you can, if you're even thinking about it, like,
Yeah.
Start to look into all that stuff. Celeste, did you have anything?
I heard Victor say this isn't home. That isn't where you plan on staying.
Well,
so
what?
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
What's your 5-year plan then? Where is home? Where do you want it to be? Because I know when I moved,
Right.
we always wanted to be in Florida.
This wasn't like where I grew.
Okay.
All right. Are we back? All right.
This
isn't where I grew up, so this is home now.
Okay.
As different as it is, we're from New York, and we picked it because this is the job that I picked, the school that I picked, so which was in down here in North Carolina. So I don't plan on. I plan on retiring. I plan on staying here. We bought this house with the land. We got the in-laws here. They built their house here on the property as well. So we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like the school. I like my students. So we just got to get used to the area. I think it'll grow on us.
Yeah.
Hopefully. I'm hoping it grows on us. I'm hoping that the culture grows on us.
Right.
Culture shock, yeah.
Yep. Only due time.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
Yeah, I think that's it. It was good. I'm trying to see if there's any more questions, but I think you answered them all.
Yeah.
Okay.
The biggest one we like to know is how your transition was, and was it smooth, or was it tough? But
I think
it's a mix
for
ROTC,
being an ROTC instructor, transitioning from the Air Force, I think it's a smooth process if you have, all the requirements, which is, you have a degree, or even now that they're changing and now you don't necessarily need a degree. It's a pretty smooth smooth transition because you already have the background checks. You have, you have your supervisors there that can vouch for you. They're your references. Everything is just super, super easy. I think if you get out and you do other things, then it becomes a little bit more difficult because then it's a new background check. Then it's very similar to when we all go through the background checks and you have to have references for where you lived in the past and all these things. It just it makes it difficult. Whereas if you transition straight from the military, it was just seamless.
Oh, cool.
Well,
I think. Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I think people need to look into ROTC more. I think it's a really good job in the sense of you're still doing everything. I literally run a mini Air Force.
Okay.
The cadets do everything that we would. I didn't realize that I was going to do as an instructor was going to be rank structure and how they get promoted and how they get like ribbons and things like that. Like, so it was my mistake. I like belittled the ribbon program in my mind. Like, they're ROTC ribbons. What does it matter? But no, it matters. You know, and then you start thinking about it, you're like, well, some of our ribbons are like, what does it matter? You know, like sometimes you get ribbons just because you got a ribbon. They're like the good kind.
I've earned that.
So, but theirs is very similar as well. And then until it hit me, you know, almost like the whole year was over, I was like, oh, this is important to them. And then how are they going to promote? Like some students would be like, in my first year, it was like a popularity contest who became like higher ranking and so on and so forth. Until I was like, no, that's not how it works. You have to do things in order to get promoted. I was like, oh wait, I have to implement this. So it was like a mini little Air Force things I can think about. I was like, you know, so it's a great job, and I think the Air Force needs to advertise it more. For people, and you don't have to be ALS Carmona, you don't have to be a recruiter or honor guard. You just have to have been in the military. You know how the things work, and then you just transition into it. The lesson plans are just like the Barn Centers. It's really easy. Just read through the lesson plans, and then that's it. It teaches itself, so to speak.
Now, I did have a question. Like, how are your appraisals done? Is it by the Air Force or is it by the school?
Oh, so the school does. This is because I am considered a PT too, so just a second year teacher. So I get inspected 4 times a year, and they just come in and they do their inspection. It's just like very similar to a PME instructor's that's what they're looking for. You know, that they involve all the students in the lesson, that they you know, do they have control of the room, things like that. And so that's for the school. The Air Force just finished their inspection. They started a whole new process. They come out every year now because they hired a whole bunch of our regional directors. And so now each regional director should have about 30 high schools, give or take. Some of them more, some of them less. So they're able to, regional directors, they travel. They travel all the time. So anyways, they should visit me once a year, and they just did it April 2nd. They gave us their big inspection, and that was nerve-wracking. So that is a little negative, not too much. Your first one's negative because you don't know what to expect. But the next part of it is it feels like an Air Force inspection. It feels like you're getting inspected by the Air Force, and you know, it's almost like NICP checklist and all that stuff.
Goodness.
All over.
Just when you thought it was over.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
One little negative aspect of it, but the regional director, was very low key. He was like, "Look, man, I'm not out to, you know, that's not how we're not in the Air Force anymore. We're not active duty anymore. This is the questions, you know, the answers to the test. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not digging or anything along those lines." So, so it was really good, really easy, and it's super easy because the students do it. So that's a little nerve-wracking too, because it's a student-led program, so the students do it all. So I was just sitting back hoping that they answered correctly. But they come out every year. The next year he will come out. He's going to look at one thing, and then that's it. So that's how we get inspected. So the regional director and the school inspects me. They watch me 4 times a year, but I think next year, since I'm a 3-year, I think it's just gonna be twice.
Nice.
Slash whenever the principal wants to walk in, the principal and the assistant principal, they can walk in whenever they want. So. But cool. Not stressful at all.
Well, no, I think this is a good opportunity for people that have separated now and are retired you know, to look more into. And salute to you for dealing with the next generation.
And continuing to serve, like,
Right.
Yeah, that
No.
was a shock in the beginning. Like the first day of school, like I was used to ALS students where you could tell them, all right, talk to yourself, tell two truths and a lie, or tell us something that you do at your job or something, and they can easily carry a conversation with each other. First day of school last year, I told the students to do that, to have a conversation with each other. They all looked at me and crickets.
They don't want to talk to each other.
And I'm like, exactly. They didn't want to talk, or they didn't know how to do that. And I'm like, oh, this is where they learn how to do all that.
They wanted to get on their phones.
Yeah.
Make a TikTok.
Oh yeah. So that was interesting. But no, they're good. For the most part, that's the hardest part, phones and getting them to, interact with each other. But once they do, then, all right, calm down, focus, pay attention to me.
Right. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation. We appreciate you taking your time to come on and chat with us.
And for anyone interested in being an ROTC instructor, you heard it here.
Yeah.
From Victor Carmona.
Yeah. That's a great job.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Anytime. I'm gonna play something and you can edit it out later, but let me see how this goes.
You about to